Check, check, check. Hey, Satinico here once again for God Loves Comics, and I've got a very quick comic book haul video for you. I've been collecting a lot of junk since the pandemic occurred, maybe unwisely so, but got some pretty fun stuff to show off. So let's start off with a bang. This is Uncanny X-Men 142, and you see a graded 9.0. Really nice copy. I paid $26.69 for this and a copy of 143, so that's actually a really good deal, I think. This is they have a 7.0 on MCS on my comic shop for $73, and then have a consigned one at 9.2 for $95. And then 143, the issue I got, I didn't even have it here. It's about a 5.0, so it's maybe about a $10 to $15 comic. This comic probably will sell for about $50, $55. The problem is that so many people were collecting these that even a beautiful copy like this, it's probably not going to sell for maximum price because there are just so many out there. But still, really happy to have it. It's I still have the copy that I bought off the spinner rack when it was first published, so happy to have a second copy. Do I have a place to put these? Can you hear me? And this is X-Men 132. Another beautiful copy, 8.5. This is a great one with the Hellfire Club. Don't know if I'm showing it properly. There, that's probably a little bit better with a little bit of glare. And 132 cost me $21.50. There were 14 bids on this, so a lot of people wanted it. It had it listed as very fine to near mint, and I would say it was very fine. So really nice copy there. Probably, I don't know, $40, $50 comic if you find the right buyer. So $21.50 is a really good deal. And then let's see. I had this X-Men 130. Now, what's cool about this is I've never owned this comic. This is a comic with Dazzler. This came, I believe from Dot Comics, but I don't remember exactly. And what did I pay for this? I think I paid about, I don't know. I think I paid about $50. But this is listed as a 7.0, so it's a nice comic. But even better is this one. This is the second copy. This is definitely a near mint copy, and I did pay $57.91 for this one, so maybe I paid less for the other one. And this had 17 bids. Both of those comics, the 132 and this 130 near mint, had a lot of bidders, so it's pretty cool to win them. $57.91, $21.50. The problem was that shipping was $7 and tax was $7.77. So you're tacking on an extra $15 to my haul just for a couple of comics. That really sucks, but what are you gonna do? This new implementation of tax, especially for my state, is just disgusting. Next up is Weird Western Tales 15, and look at that. It's in a mylar slip, so it's really beautiful. It's actually probably about a 5.5. It's got a fair amount of spine wear and ticks, but the actual cover presents beautifully, and you can see that's a Neil Adams cover. It has a beautiful Neil Adams splash page inside and Neil Adams interior art. I still probably overpaid for this. I only paid $11, but shipping and taxes again brought it up to $17.17. A 6.0 on my comic shop is only $13, so paying $17 probably for a 5.5 is overpaying. Still, art by Neil Adams, cover by Neil Adams, some interior art by Gil Kane and Bill Draught, and stories by Marv Wolfman, Jack Olek, and Carrie Bates. So really cool copy. And then these are some comics I really like and I'm really happy to have as well. And There you go, with My Love. This is My Love number 12, yeah. This is a very fine, at least that's what he had it listed on the on his site. It's incredibly difficult to find these in really good quality. And so they're generally very expensive, and there's generally pretty hot bidding on those. So I got this for $12.21. Is it very fine? I'm not sure. It's probably 7.5. I'd have to take it out of the bag and look at it again because it's been a little while since I bought it. This is actually a John Romita cover, which those are very much valued, especially for the Marvel Comics, romance line. And this is John Romita doing the French style that was actually kind of popular at the time. Apparently in romance comics, there were a couple of French artists and a couple of Spanish artists that were doing more sort of this style. The design of her dress is quite beautiful, and it could still be Gwen Stacy as far as I'm concerned. Could still be a shaggy-haired Peter Parker. You can always see like evidence of Romita's Spider-Man talent in his earlier romance work. And then this is another beautiful one. This really could be Gwen Stacy. This is number 2 of My Love. Great cover, beautiful cover. That could definitely be Gwen Stacy. And that again is obviously John Romita. This one was $17.51. I'm not sure if it's because people prefer the cover or just because of the number. It was number 2 as opposed to the previous one was number 12. Definitely got a few spine ticks, a little bit of rolling. You can maybe see Romita's signature there at the bottom where my finger is. I think so. Yeah, right there. Yep. So beautiful cover though, really like it, and that costs $17.51. As I said, these are not cheap. They're not incredibly expensive, but they're definitely not cheap. And then we've got Our Love Story number 16, another beautiful cover, and that is John Buscema and Joe Sinnott cover. Joe Sinnott's still alive, by the way, which is fantastic news. Plus they have a 7-page story inside, plus art by Alan Weiss, Mike Sikowski and Jack Abel, and Sal Buscema and John Verpoorten. So you've got both Buscema brothers, which you didn't see too often, even in the Marvel superheroes. They were both so busy that you had John working on one book and Sal working on another. But this is a rare case where you've got John Buscema and Sal Buscema, and they're both working on romance, and a beautiful cover as well. So really happy to have that one. That was $13.01. And then finally, this was not in the same batch, but this is one of the only other romance comics I was able to buy, and this is Love Stories with a J. Scott Pike cover, and I think some J. Scott Pike art as well. J. Scott Pike, really famous in the romance sort of division, and then left comics and sort of started becoming an erotic painter and a good girl artist on his own right, painting, and probably it was much more lucrative and much more profitable in that regards. And it's very, his covers are definitely very sought after as well, and pretty provocative cover from the time period. Girl being caught in a net. It's got a pretty crazy story inside as well, at a glance. Now we move on and wonder whether I'm going to pass out wearing this mask, but I'm being safe. I'm protecting you, the listener, because there's no way that my breath is actually going to reach you. My vapor, toxic vapors. Okay, I'm really excited about these. This is Chilling Adventures in Sorcery number 3. See right there? I paid $5.91 for this. This is listed as a fine 5.5. These are, I think these are from Dot Comics as well. I forget. I think so, because they actually put the labels on there and actually grade them. But yeah, $5.91. You can see a beautiful cover by Gray Morrow. That is the selling point. Gray Morrow did these beautiful this line where he was editing for Red Circle Comics Group for Archie's Red Circle Comics Group. If you think about this, this is the predecessor really to the current Archie horror TV series, multiple TV series that are very horror oriented, which seem very out of line for the typical Archie Jughead sort of thing. And these were definitely the predecessors of those in the same kind of creepy, beautiful, horrific way. This is one of my favorite covers of all time right here, that I've seen, you know, recently, that I stumbled across, I don't know, quite a while back. I would see it online and I would think, wow, that is an amazing cover. And that is Chilling Adventures of Sorcery #5. This in a 5.0 is only worth $6.25. So these are, or I think I paid $6.25. I'm sorry, I paid $5.91 for the previous one. They're not really worth much more than that, so it's pretty much fair value. But you can see what a beautiful cover. See that cover? And really reminds me so much of EC Comics. I think that's where Mora was taking some of his inspiration there, from the EC's science fiction line. More so than their horror line, I would say, in this case. Beautiful cover. One of my favorites. Okay, and then next up, another one of my favorite covers. And I've got now, this is another comic where I have multiple copies of it. After never having any copies throughout my whole life. And that's this Detective Comics number 407? No, 404. I should know that, but whatever. This is actually in fine 5.0. I paid $13.50 for it. It's a Neil Adams cover and art. My comic shop 6.0 for this is $65 with staple rust. So this is probably a $35 to $40 comic if you can find the right person to buy it for that. Otherwise, it's maybe $25 to $30 comic if you want to just a quicker sell. But beautiful cover. I love the colors. I've got a couple of copies of, I've got I think 3 copies of this now, including one that's actually probably an 8.5. So this is nice. This is one I intend to try to resell, and getting it for $13.50 I think is a really good deal, especially when the MCS has a 6.0 for $65 with staple rust, which is always kind of a killer. So that's really nice. And then I've got another copy of this. I've got now multiple copies of this. This is 407. And once again, Man-Bat. I've got all of the Man-Bat series now, which, again, I never owned these Detective Comics when I was growing up. They were a little bit before my time. And this, again, another great cover. And this is the first appearance of She-Bat, for whatever that's worth. I paid $22.50 for this. MCS has a 4.5 for $32. This is considered a 5.5, so it's not really much above fair value in this case. I mean, maybe I even overpaid for it a little bit. It's probably a $30 comic if you find the right buyer, but otherwise, you know, still good to have. And then it gets really interesting. This comic, Jesse James #1 from Fawcett Comics. I'm sorry, from Avon. It's actually got a Gene Fawcett cover. That's why I said Fawcett Comics. But it's Avon's Jesse James #1 from 1953. So very much a golden age comic. What's very cool about this, besides the great cover, is that it has Joe Kubert art inside, which is actually very cool. MCS has none of the first 17 issues in stock except for one copy of #3 for $2.5 for $18. I paid $18.50 for this, and probably because it's #1, it had a lot of people bidding on it, and so I kind of was happy to win the bidding war. But in retrospect, I don't know if you can tell, but you can see how rolled the spine is and how cracked up it is. I'm pretty concerned that it probably will separate from the staples if it hasn't already. It's very rolled, and there's a little bit of chipping along the cover, and the pages are a little bit brittle. So all of those things considered, I probably am not too happy. It looks good looking at it in the bag on video. It looks pretty good, but all things considered, I'm not terribly happy with this issue, to be honest. But I don't know if I'll try to flip it and just get my money back on it, just recoup my money, or if I'll just hang on to it. But the very rolled spine and the cracked up, you know, and the cracks on the spine and slight brittling, all of that kind of takes the edge off it a little bit for me. But it's still a really cool comic to own. I just probably shouldn't have paid more than maybe $10 for it, if that. Now, here's some comics I just bought for fun, basically because I love the covers. the Nick Cardy covers. Teen Titans again. I've been just buying the Nick Cardy covers from Teen Titans. Unfortunately, these don't necessarily have Cardy art in them. I think it's mostly Bob Hall and maybe some Cardy inks, but the covers is still pretty cool and really fun to have. And plus, I bought 3 copies of these Teen Titans for $6.79. But again, I got ripped off massively on shipping and handling. I think it was $8. I mean, it's not a rip off, it's actually, that's what it costs to send, 3 comics by priority mail, but still end up paying like $16-17 for 3 comics that really were $6.79. This is the second one. Another great cover. I've seen this cover many times and always really loved it. The sort of mummy theme that's going on, plus the Quasimodo figure at the top of that log or whatever it is, spire. And again, another Nick Cardy cover. I believe the interior art again is by Bob Hall. Remember? And then last but not least is this great cover. Hope I'm showing these well enough. Yeah, that's a lot better. I should be doing that more, right? I'm looking at the camera. Yeah, so that's a great cover too. All of these are in pretty mediocre condition, or they might be worth a little bit more. I would say they're all probably 4.5 to 5 at the most. Medium wear. They're mostly sort of reader copies, even though they're a little bit nicer, probably reader copies. Okay, and then we get into definitely the Dot Comics haul. It's only 3 comics, but 3 pretty nice and pricey comics. Let me find the prices for these. Okay, so we got this one. And by the way, the X-Men 130 7.0, that also came from Dot Comics. That was a $51 comic. So you see, I got a 7.0 for $51, and then I got a near mint for $57, which is a lot better, I think, in terms of pricing. But there were 19 bids on that X-Men 130, so again, a lot of competition. That's what happens when you're on these sites, these major comic sites where there's a lot of listings, so it draws a lot of people in, chumming the waters, and so inevitably there's going to be a lot of competition. If you're looking for a great deal, I think it's a lot better to look for really off the beaten path sellers, small collectors who are just kind of getting rid of some comics in their collection, or antique shops that don't really care about the comics. They're just tossing them in along with whatever tchotchkes they have. Sometimes you can get a really good deal that way. Anyway, here's a small key, or maybe not so small. This is X-Men 221, and it's a very fine, and this is the first Mr. Sinister. It's a little bit after I had stopped collecting or buying X-Men, when Mark Silvestri was actually on the title. I think I hung on until it was John Romita Jr. for a little while, and then I was pretty much gone. I think I saw some Mark Silvestri too, but I didn't get this copy. This is the only copy I own. I just purchased it online, of course, and I paid $20.50 for this. That's pretty good, because there was actually a fair amount of competition for this as well, since it's a minor villain key, but there was a lot of talk about Sinister being in a future X-Men X-Men movie, so that always jacks up the price. So it's certainly valuable if that happens, because then suddenly there'll be a rush on it, and it'll be worth a lot more than the $20 I paid for it, and I'll be happy to sell it, because I have no particular emotional attachment to it. And then you have this beautiful copy. We're going completely different direction. This is fantastic. $4.59. This is only a 3.5, so I only paid $13.50 for it. It's probably about a $25 comic in fair value. But of course, classic. Jack Kirby, Stan Lee, Joe Sinnott. Dr. Doom wreaks havoc across the globe with the power cosmic. Black Bolt destroys the barrier that was imprisoning the Inhumans, I guess by just opening his mouth as usual. Nice cover. Not the best condition copy, even though looking at it, probably looks a little bit better on a 3.5. Might be a 4. But nice to have. These I can look at all day just for the Kirby art inside, And this only costs $13.50, not so bad. And I paid a lot more for the next one. but it's actually in better condition. This is a tough comic to find in this nice of condition on eBay for a reasonable price. And I've always loved this cover too. It reminds me a lot of Donnie Darko. If you've seen Donnie Darko the movie, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, maybe you should go see the movie, and then you'll see that Atuma, this is the first appearance of Atuma, a fairly major villain in the Fantastic Four universe, and also I first saw him in Avengers in the Bronze Age, which was also illustrated by Kirby. And but you'll see a resemblance between Frank the Bunny from Donnie Darko and Atuma, at least in this early appearance, where he's wearing what looks like a skull bunny cap. But anyway, great cover. You can see Kirby's use of collage effect, you know, where the photo effect for his backgrounds that he started to experiment with in Fantastic Four on some of the, you know, big 2-page splash pages, and also occasionally in Thor as well, which was very unique and very strange at the time. So and it looks really cool here. And this was actually a 5.5. This cost me $56. And there was, again, a lot of bidding for this, so I was pretty happy to win it. And the highest grade on my comic shop is a water damage 3.5 for $49.50, and a consigned 4.0 for $56. So I paid $56 for a 5.5, so I think it's definitely a good deal by comparison. Whether somebody would pay more than that for this, whether, you know, I could get 75 out of it, seems a little bit of a stretch, unless Atuma appears as a major villain in something, or even a minor villain in something, probably in the Marvel Universe, probably in a movie, of course. But still, this is classic Lee Kirby. Beautiful comic, beautiful art inside, and it's a really cool addition to my collection. I'm not really looking to sell it so much as I just want to own it and enjoy it. And also, it has a pretty cool addition in that it has this is Chickstone inks, which I prefer Sonat, of course, but that's still okay. But it has a letter from a letter to the editor from comics writer Don McGregor, who is still alive and kicking. People may remember him from various things. I think it was Saber and some of the Strange World stuff with Killraven and stuff like that. That's where I remember him. Very wordy sort of writer, but wrote a letter in here. And again, first Atuma. So that's it for that comics haul. I've still got quite a few more comics to get to, but my comics hauls are all relatively few comics, and me running my mouth a lot compared to everybody else who shows a ton of comics and says nothing and gets it all done in 10 minutes. So I can apologize for that, but that's it for now for this COVID-19 free edition of the Comics Interpreter. Not the Comics Interpreter. What am I talking about? God Loves Comics. And thanks. Goodbye.